attorney. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I wonder if there isn't a connection here. In the first segment, I'm talking about meeting with an engineer. Oh, and by the way, give us a call anytime you like, 616-774-2424. Go to the website, davidcarrierlaw.com. That's davidcarrierlaw.com, and come to a workshop. This guy comes to the workshop, right? And we're on Facebook and everywhere else you can imagine. But anyway, so he comes to the workshop, and this is like the second or third workshop he's been to, and finally kind of understands it, grasps it, but he's an engineer. And I say, but he's an engineer. I've worked with engineers my whole life. I've done software development, so I have some sympathy for that and that perspective. And the great thing about engineers is they want to know how it works, and they actually appreciate sometimes when things do work. But the failure of vision on my part, see, this is the problem. Why have tens of thousands of people now done this kind of estate planning, right? Why? Because, well, you might say because it works. What does that even mean? It works. Like, why haven't you done yours? If every workshop I get two or three folks who've like, oh yeah, we've been listening to your show forever, and finally came in. Yeah, 10 years now you've been listening to the show, and what? Am I saying something different? I don't think so. I don't know when it'll be 20 years, but we're closing in on that. That we've been doing the show, and so pretty soon there'll be somebody. Oh, I listened to your first show back on WHTC, Holland's hometown station, and now I'm finally coming in to do it. Oh, great! Hey, it took a while, but like, what is it? Is it the? It's not the technical part of it. You know what I mean? It's like the automobile you have, right? You didn't buy your car because it had a 10-speed transmission or a 3-speed transmission or whatever. Okay, if you had any choice at all in the matter, there are all kinds of other reasons that you bought it. Same way with any large purchase that you make, right? It's like these televisions now. You go in a if you're like me, you go into Sam's Club or Costco or something, and you're like, they've got an 85-inch television now for like $800, something like that. I mean, it's absolutely absurd because the 42-inch TVs, if you recall, it wasn't that long ago, that those were thousands of dollars. And now you got one that's bigger than anything, it's like war room big, and it's $800. I mean, it's like, what in the world? Now, why did you buy that? If you bought that, which I didn't, but if you were, and what's the difference between that one and the one that's still thousands of dollars? Because they've got an 85-inch out there. It's a Sony No Baloney. It's a really whatever it is. But I mean, you look at them, like, how different is it? It's an 85-inch television. Of course, it spies on you, which is why it's so cheap, right? They're selling your data. If you don't believe this, go to your TV and say, trip to the Bahamas, trip to the Bahamas, trip to the Bahamas, or something like that. And the next thing you know, you'll be getting emails, and they'll be texting you and stuff. Oh, how about a trip to the Bahamas? I mean, that's why one of the reasons they're so cheap. But the point is, the reason you bought the name brand versus the not so name brand TV, even though you probably can't tell the difference when you look at them side by side. The reason you bought it is because there were some emotional component to it, right? There was some, Sony is really good, so it's worth spending 3 times as much to get the Sony. Plus, I can see those, your eyes can't even appreciate the difference. Let's face it. You get 6 feet away from the screen, and it just doesn't matter. Is it HD, Super HD, 4K, 8K, hello K, goodbye K, whatever? Who knows? Who knows? But the point is that you had some emotional connection to it. This is why people do stuff. And so that gets me back to when I explain, and I'm happy to. Believe me, I'm if you're interested, I'm happy to explain how this stuff works, right? I mean, I'm more than happy to explain how the trusts work, what the Medicaid rules look like, what we've done to change it. We've made over 20 changes, I think 23, 24 changes now changes to our documents since the COVID, right? Because banks have changed their activities, hospitals have changed their doctors won't sign off on stuff anymore. You really need to keep up with this stuff. Um, and for some people, nah, I have to say for nobody cares about that stuff, really. I care about it. I like to see it. It gives me a warm fuzzy to know that there's stuff in your trust. If you've done a trust with us, there's stuff in your trust you'll never see. You'll never When I was a kid, you remember back when there was we did paneling in rooms. You put the slabs of wood on the wall. Paneling, and I was my father's assistant. Let's put it that way. Um, and my job was to know which tool he was going to need next. Which I was not very good at that job, but it doesn't mean I got to go and play with my brothers and like the other kids. No, I was there to go get it, step and fetch it for the dad. But anyway, we had and he was big into paneling, right? So he repaneled the whole freaking house, me right there with him. And I remember one time we were putting up some paneling, and we got it in behind a cornice or something, and it was a small piece, but it took for freaking ever. And when we were done, he appreciated it. I appreciated it. And he turns to me and he says, "You know something, David?" He says, "No one will ever appreciate how much work it was to get that thing." No, it was behind the front door. You know what I mean? So when the front door was open, you didn't even see it. Uh, it's like it was in the foyer, the unused room of the house. And it's like he had a point there. It was the hardest thing we had done all day, and it was the thing with the least that no one would appreciate. And the point is not that the point is that you can work your butt off, you can do all these wonderful things. Nobody appreciates it, right? That's not the point. The point is not how hard it was to make this thing work. It's not, in the trusts and stuff like that. It's not how clever we were. It's not how brilliant we were in fixing this stuff for your family and all the rest of it. Nobody really cares about that. Instead, it's something on a much deeper level. It's much more important. I would say much more important than the legal technical aspect of the thing. It's not about it's not about that. It's not about the follow through. It's not about the legal technical aspect of it. I mean, you got to get that part right. I'm not saying you don't. You absolutely do, and better than anybody. And I'll put my stuff up against theirs. That's fine. But when we get back, I'll talk a little more about what it is about, because it ain't about it's not about getting it right. It's not about the legal technical aspect of the thing. Otherwise, you'd have been in here 20 years ago.